Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed your coffee. And we're going to look at now, in this section, we're going to look at the core program, the management program we have in mind. It's a level 7 CQ, is it CQF we call it these days?
Yes.
CQF level 7, just to make it simple, this is a postgraduate level, mainly strategic level of management. The program would, is 120 credits. I think in a local credit is around 30 or 40 credits, this part of the program. It covers everything a top manager needs. But before we go to that, I got to say again that we worked on the MCI leadership program proposal, and when I read it, I was nicely surprised. It was well done, well written. But when I asked John, what do you think? I mean, this is a company going through privatization.
Yeah, I think it's very clear. That's one point. I read it the first time and really it told me everything I wanted to know. I like the structure of what you're trying to do here. You're looking at the 3 different levels of management, which is really good. And you're looking at basic skills management, and then you're looking at how those skills management can be applied in specific areas which are now important and likely not truly heavily emphasized under the old regime. So I think it's an excellent document.
When I read it, as I remember, like I said, 20 odd years ago, BT going through it, and I remember the pain the managers were going through, studying, working, and massive volume. Then I thought the best program for a practicing manager is the EdXL program, because of its practicality. Is, you know, all the assignments are project-based, which you can draw back from your expertise. I asked one of our friends actually to do the program, distance learning, just to see how it works. And this is a guy with 30 years of management consultancy experience, and he says it's brilliant because of, not because you don't study theory, but you can draw back on from your experience and adjust it to the theory we are working on. So that was my selection. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so, because it's very practical. I'm a member of the Chartered Institute of Marketing, so I come from this professional position rather than from academia. And I like GMS because it takes a professional approach to training people to be useful in business, as opposed to training them to lecture, just like to come forward and lecture. So no, it's a very good program. And when I use it, I like to run it more as a workshop rather than as a lecture class. And students, I find at this level, respond really well to that.
Let's go through I think there's around 10 core subjects in the core subjects, and let's just look at the program as it is for any management in any industry, because it can be adapted, and we will look at that adaptation later on. Let's just go through it. What do you have? Where do we start?
Well, finance. Finance is going to be different, so you've got a challenge there. Not in the way you developed your financial statements, because you've had to do that anyway, but the fact that you now have to share them with shareholders because they're the owners, and they want these to be clear and concise, and the communication is going to be different, so that's something you're going to need to consider. Strategic planning, it's going to be different. Ian Balance said when he was privatised, I'd thrown away my strategic plan. It doesn't mean anything anymore. It's going to be a lot more based on how you can achieve a competitive advantage, and a lot less based on how you can achieve technology excellence.
I think that's one of the key areas. As a government organisation, you're driven by asking for more investment, and because that's how you get some of your money back. Otherwise it goes to the treasury. But as a private organization, obviously you've got the stakeholders, you have to pay them some return on their investment, you've got the stock market to deal with, and also is now more, I think one of the challenges is here from the cultural background, they are more into getting more equipment and probably expansion, just for the sake of expansion, where here we are a commercial company, we have to look at our return on investment. So that is probably one of the key issue, which I think we are looking into more detail of that in the specialization subject we come back to. We got a heavy project management part of this program as well, which I guess telecom company is all about projects. So left, right, center, you're doing different development, repairs, expansions, changing from one technology to another technology.
I think life is about project management, and even if you don't do it as an executive, you have to understand it because you're dealing with people who do. You have to understand the issues, and you have to understand what's possible and what isn't. I've been through that outside of state industry quite a lot, mostly in most countries around the world, and it can make or break your company, your ability to actually implement a project on time and within budget.
And that's all where the cost is coming, isn't it?
Yep.
You know, delivering on time so we can start getting return on it. The cost overrun is always the projects, because the normal operation has a very simple fixed cost of staff and your equipment maintenance. So it's a project which create opportunities and the threats. I mean, something you bring in and it doesn't sell.
Exactly.
So I think that we have seen in the last 20 odd years different technology for a mobile phone. I mean, Rabbit, I remember. Remember Rabbit?
Yes, they do.
It was one of those that they had. You had a phone which you have to go near to these stations to be able to use it.
Yes, I was in America at the time. I saw
Hutchinson did it, and it failed. But then they launched Orange. And they were successful. So a project can kill you, but I mean, what I was reading about it was that the mistakes they made, and it gave them the lessons what they needed to, obviously the investors were backing them.
Well, Tom Peters was talking about liberation management, which is somewhat what we're going through here. We're going through a sea change in the way we actually run our business. And Tom said that you really want people to be innovative, and if you want to be innovative, you've got to give them the freedom to experiment, and they will make mistakes. They will make horrendous mistakes because they won't learn unless they make mistakes, and you've got to sit there and accept.
I think that's one of the challenges that this organization has to become a bit more fluid and more on its feet rather than being very structural as normal government organizations are. So where do we tackle that issue of flexibility?
Well, that's what comes down to organization structure. If you have a functional structure, hierarchies have a civil service, a long way from the guy at the bottom who's facing the customer to the executives at the top who are actually managing the business. Decisions needing to be made by going up and up and up the organization. Very slow decision making. Just doesn't work in the commercial environment. You've got to turn the whole thing on its head and make it flat. I know everybody says that, it's a buzzword, but it's got to be done, and it's a painful step. Well, and then you've got to empower people because you can't manage 10 people.
I mean, it is a structural plan. It is in the planning. It is in your managing the change. It will come in. I think leadership elements. We will see that. We all talk about flattening organizations, but it is to do about sitting down and working out and say where I can give authorities away and responsibilities away and demand accountability. I think
the biggest challenge is delegation. If you've come from an environment where you have been micromanaging your staff, and then you have to suddenly sit back and let these people go and trust them to do things which you have done, so you have your way of doing it, and to let them go out and do it, and sometimes they'll make mistakes, sometimes they'll come back and they'll achieve it.
I think the biggest worry is mistakes or things like that, but if one does a critical analysis on the functionality of each part, and you would know that the damage would be very little, for example, here, so let's give the freedom, and where it's become more crucial or very dangerous, then we can put more controls on it.
Oh, of course.
So but it is looking at functionality.
So you don't get a police
But I don't think in telecom that would happen.
No, but at some point you've got to draw a line and say, well, authority is needed here before decisions of that enormity will actually.
But one can start the process of flattening by analyzing functionalities and see what are the functions and what's the risk, do a risk assessment on it, and associate the risk with it, and say, okay, this risk is easy to take, let them learn it, and given the delegation and the authority to make decisions. So that it is something that the managers should do it, otherwise they would be left with the same rigid, solid structure, which would not change forever. And so that's something it is addressed here. We're going to call it system management. I think that is a key for any commercial organization to deliver quality.
Sure.
So that I think is, we have addressed that. Marketing. I think that's the main difference.
Well,
from what they are.
Yes, because it's moving up the value chain. It's this emphasis, I keep using that term, but it's this emphasis on the most important person is your customer.
Exactly.
And you start with your customer, not end with your customer.
I remember when BT started, when privatized, and they started advertising, and it's nice to call. They had these ads, calling friends in Australia, or being in touch with family. I mean, that was before the mobile telecommunication, but it still works. I mean, still you can increase the volume, start looking at, you can play against the cost, for example. So getting back into from a company which was providing a service, being a company providing a product, a commercial then. So we want to increase the consumption of it. So, where before it was creating connectivity, now we want them to buy more.
And you want them to buy more, and you want to sell them services. So your marketing, as well as being involved in the technology of the enterprise, is also to do with selling them additional services.
And I think what BT went through as well, that they start coming with a new look, new logo, their engineers start becoming more smart, because that is where you're facing your public. So it wasn't just going and fixing something, they were your ambassadors and people going out there. So BT was looking at the whole package.
They were the personality of your brand. So
yeah.
When you saw a service engineer, what you saw was what you thought of the company.
Yeah, so the marketing, when we look at the strategic marketing, it is looking at the whole picture and where we want to be from now in 10 years' time, to be a brand, home brand, because eventually competitors are going to come and you want to be well established, presumably as a...
Brand is very important, because in the mobile industry, as opposed to the fixed industry, your users don't know you quite as well, and therefore they look at the brand.
I think within our colleagues' mobile division, they have got competition, so they are quite familiar with competition. Yeah. But still, they're the first mobile company there with 30-odd million subscribers. But competition is there, and eventually they will become big. And so this issue is very important. It's well addressed in this program. I think that's all we're going to say about core. I got to the core of the program. John, do you want to round it up and before we go to specialized subjects?
Well, yes, and I noticed your document talks a great deal about leadership, which I think is excellent, and it really encompasses everything that we're talking about here in one bundle.
I mean, I know DMS starts with the leadership, and everything else is about the strategic, is about looking at the problem from outside, is problem solving, addressing long-term issues. So,
but it's also this concept of moving away from the foil approach of control to leadership, because as a private enterprise, you've got to be more of a leader and inspire people, motivate.
And I think the clients' documentation shows the same thing. Their desire to create these world-class leaders to move the company really high internationally. It's a massive company and definitely got the potential to do it. And hopefully, if you are invited, we will be helping them in that sort of challenge. We're going to have another break, so we're going to let you go and have another tea or coffee. In the next section, we will talk about the specialized area, the customization, and where the program we're proposing is becoming different from what we naturally deliver. See you later.